This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore.
Many of you know that I served for not a great deal of time in the United States Marine Corps, but half a decade. And I used my experiences in the military, specifically the Corps, to inform how I think about things, how I report on or commentate, if you will, on the news and on current events and on politics. And during the Trump administration, I got a lot of questions from people asking about the likelihood that the military would just follow Trump blindly into the void of authoritarianism and act maliciously with sinister intent against the people of the United States. And they always, with guarded optimism, said no. Because I believe that the highest echelon of our military are at their core intelligent intellectuals who understand the importance of a civilian-run military. But also, they, at their core, have a deep respect for the oath that they took to the Constitution of these United States to protect it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It's being reported right now. There's a new book. Well, there's a slew of books that are coming out right now about the waning days of Donald Trump's final year or just his administration in general, because a lot of people are less reticent to talk. It's over. Now they're a lot more free with the deets, if you will, about what went on. And we're finding out that we were a lot more likely or susceptible to peril our democracy than we once thought. And it's not just me and other talking heads like me who thought that and who talked about stuff like this. It's also that very same highest echelon of our military. I'm going to read from this article some remarkable details coming out in this book called I Alone Can Fix It, Donald Trump's Catastrophic Final Year. I'm going to read from this Washington Post article. Buckle up, because there are some insane details that need to be talked about. From the Washington Post, Joint Chiefs Chairman feared potential Reichstag moment aimed at keeping Trump in power. In the waning weeks of Donald Trump's term, the country's top military leader repeatedly worried about what the president might do to maintain power after losing re-election, comparing his rhetoric to Adolf Hitler's during the rise of Nazi Germany and asking confidants whether a coup was forthcoming, according to a new book by two Washington Post reporters. As Trump ceaselessly pushed false claims about the 2020 presidential election, General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, grew more and more nervous, telling aides he feared that the president and his acolytes might attempt to use the military to stay in office. Carol Leonnig and Philip Rucker report in I Alone Can Fix It, Donald Trump's catastrophic final year. Now, look, it is one thing when, like I said, eggheads like me who talk about politics and current events, when we wax alarm about what was happening and calling him an authoritarian, and the thought or the prospect of Donald Trump using the military in a sinister way to undermine democracy. It's one thing. I don't lie. I tell how I feel. I feel like my opinion is correct. Otherwise, I wouldn't say it. But it's a whole thing entirely different when the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff feels that way as well. Milley described a stomach-churning feeling as he listened to Trump's untrue complaints of election fraud, drawing a comparison to the 1933 attack on Germany's parliament building that Hitler used as a pretext to establish a Nazi dictatorship. This is a Reichstag moment, Milley told aides, according to the book, The Gospel of the Führer. Listen, I've talked about Godwin's law that inevitably during a conversation on the internet, the longer it goes, the more likely it is someone to invoke the name or behavior of Adolf Hitler and Nazis. It's one thing in an internet conversation. It's another thing entirely when someone like Mark Milley, a respected, decorated combat veteran, thinks the same thing. Now, look, Mark Milley, I've had my criticisms for. He was part of the entourage that walked across the block during this summer's peaceful protests just after Donald Trump had them gassed in the streets. Peaceful protests. It can't be said that there was chaos out there. There was not. And Mark Milley was a part of the group. Him and Bill Barr and Mark Esper, the Department of Defense Secretary, they walked out there across with Donald Trump. It was a show of force. I advocated for the resignation of Mark Milley at the time. I still think he should have resigned because there are consequences when you start mingling authoritarianism and using your uniform in that way. He should have been smart enough not to do it. We are where we are. He's still around. And maybe I was wrong in retrospect. Maybe it was a good thing that he stuck around, that there wasn't a more Trump-loyal individual that would have taken his place. I don't know. But I'm open to having been wrong. Portions of the book related to Milley, first reported Wednesday night by CNN ahead of the book's July 20th release, offer a remarkable window into the thinking of America's highest-ranking military officer who saw himself as one of the last empowered defenders of democracy during some of the darkest days in the country's recent history. The episodes in the book are based on interviews with more than 140 people, including senior Trump administration officials, friends, and advisors. Now, this is what I'm getting ready to read are some of the moments that are just, they're shocking. There's no other way to put it. It's not a common occurrence for generals to question the commander-in-chief as possibly wanting to use the military to stay in power illegally, extra-constitutionally. That's not a normal thing. Listen to some of these moments. After attending a November 10th security briefing about the Million MAGA March, a pro-Trump rally protesting the election, Milley said he feared an American equivalent of brown shirts in the streets, alluding to the paramilitary forces that protected Nazi rallies and enabled Hitler's ascent. Late that same evening, according to the book, an old friend called Milley to express concerns that those close to Trump were attempting to overturn the government. Quote, "You are one of the few guys who are standing between us and some really bad stuff," the friend told Milley, according to an account relayed to his aides. Milley was shaken, Lennox and Rucker write, and he called former National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster to ask whether a coup was actually imminent. "What the am I dealing with?" Milley asked him. If someone wanted to seize control, Milley thought, they would need to gain sway over the FBI, the CIA, and the Department of Defense, where Trump had already installed staunch allies. Quote, "They may try, but they're not going to succeed," he told some of his closest deputies, the book says. Again, this is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He doesn't have command over troops. He is a direct advisor. He's the highest officer-ranked advisor, military advisor to the President of the United States. That's his job. He doesn't have direct command over troops. He does have direct influence over commanders, though, because they don't put a private in charge. They don't put some corporal in charge or some butterbar lieutenant. They put a full general who is well decorated. In the weeks that followed, Milley played reassuring soothsayer to a string of concerned members of Congress and administration officials who shared his worries about Trump attempting to use the military to stay in office. "Everything's going to be okay," he told them, according to the book. "We're going to have a peaceful transfer of power. We're going to land this plane safely. This is America. It's strong. The institutions are bending, but it won't break," according to the book and according to Mark Milley. Ultimately, he was right. And I've said this before, and I will repeat it because it bears repeating. Next time those institutions might not just bend. Next time, if we have someone with actual cognitive ability, not just authoritarian tendencies, those institutions may break. This is why action and activism on the part of Americans who care about the country matters. That we don't get another Trump, a mildly more intelligent Trump. We're already on the precipice of failure, of collapse. Our democratic institutions are in peril. And it takes getting fired up, getting involved, giving of your resources, whether that be time, volunteer time, or money in campaign donations, to true Americans who care about preserving and bettering the Union, to make that more perfect Union that our founders talked about. I hope you will be one of those people. What do you think about this, though? There are more books to come, more things to talk about. I would love to know your opinion. You can call, leave me a brief voicemail, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can call or you can email me, daily@dollemore.com. I would appreciate your communication. I'd love to hear from you. You can also sound off, fire at me a message on social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. That's still weird to say. And also, I would encourage you, if I bring you value, to support my work here on the platform. You can give on Patreon, which is patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. Not just for the podcast, it's for the entire media creation operation. And also here on YouTube. You can click the join button, become a channel member for as little as $2 a month. You can help support and produce my work here. I love you guys. I appreciate you. It is through a built community that we're going to ensure another generation has a country to enjoy. That we can build something that is in line with the aspirations that were written about, a couple hundred years ago. Anyway, I love you guys. I'll see you next time. Until then, be genuine. Take care of one another.